I'm going to get a little personal in this video. I love romance, I love love stories, but I definitely understand the potentially negative influences they can have on young girls. When I was younger, I was obsessed with crushes. Who wasn't, really? It was a major distraction, especially in school. Eventually, I grew beyond it, but I still consumed mainly love stories. If a book, movie, or television show did not have a love story, I sort of avoided it. When a love story was introduced, I became obsessed with that story and was concerned about that much more than anything else going on. I've only been criticized by someone about this one time, but that criticism stuck with me. It poked at my subconscious every time I got butterflies about a new romance. It made me feel guilty about not getting as excited about other things that were going on that were supposedly more important to the story. But over time, I did get into various media because of other reasons. I consume a lot of stories, but generally, I didn't have a love story I was really involved with since I was in grade school. And then this happened. And I realized I never really stopped loving love stories. Should I feel bad? Should I feel immature? No, I shouldn't. And let me tell you why. I was 9 when As Told by Ginger came out in 2000, and it was the first time I remember being personally affected by a romantic subplot. It was the first time I related to a character and saw myself experiencing love with them. In the same year, The Goblet of Fire introduced our first romantic subplots and conflicts for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Having a romantic story in which the characters feel real, like someone you know, gets into your adolescent head and stays there forever. Hashtag Ginger and Darren for life. On the other hand, the fantasy and whimsy of Harry Potter made the romance feel even more magical than just the butterflies in your stomach. So I wanted more. In retrospect, what was this doing to my psyche? All of the hormones I had raging inside of me at my most vulnerable age were channeled into imaginary characters. I could pretend to be a character in that story, perhaps the one that was the girl that is falling in love, and then I could compare myself to them based on the decisions they made and how they reacted to the conflict. Ultimately, we learn from these characters that we want to be or want to be with. It shapes us into smart, empathetic adults. This is the good side of romantic stories for young people. Kids absolutely can understand fiction from reality. They watch Anakin fall in love with Padme, but then he allows his obsession with her to lead him down the path to the dark side, even though he knows it's something Padme would not want. Kids get that. They know at which point Anakin's relationship with Padme became unbalanced. They know when love turned to obsession. On the other hand, Twilight shows a teen obsessed with a vampire to the point that she attempts to harm herself to get his attention. This is a problematic storyline, yes, but it gets a little bit of a pass because it's fantasy. In fact, every problematic or unhealthy relationship children and teens come across can affect them in a positive way just as much as it can provide a negative influence. Twilight is simply another iteration of the Beauty and the Beast trope, after all. Young women fall in love with the monster, and through their love, the monster transforms into a prince, a good and beautiful man. Generally, between the ages of 8 and 16, girls experience a lot of development biologically, physically, and emotionally. Getting to know the opposite sex during these years can be the best thing in life and the worst thing at the same time. Girls tend to develop slightly faster than boys, and a tiny quirk in our biology makes us want to nurture them. We want to help them change and grow up, so the stories we tend to love are the ones that illustrate this on an extreme scale. When we consume stories during these years, we are attempting to discover others such as ourselves, to prove that we are not alone. We want to fit in as much as we want to stand out, which creates a lot of conflict inside our little hormonal bodies. Love is powerful. It reminds us that there are forces at work in the universe that are stronger than we are, and that's comforting. Love changes the hearts of individuals, and therefore it changes the hearts of nations. Learning what romantic love is compared to familial love or brotherly love is incredibly important during this age of development. It helps us parse out who we are and what we can do with a little bit of empathy and compassion for someone we don't know or don't have anything in common with. Love can change people. I attribute a lot of my compassionate insight, as well as my vivid imagination, to love stories. Who I am now was absolutely affected by what sorts of media I consumed as a child and teen. Of course, there are an infinite number of things that will affect how you interpret a story, so everyone's takeaway is different. But I can certainly attribute specific stories that help to change my views on love, lust, and relationships. For example, a lot of the media I consumed led me to perceiving this as incredibly romantic. And those feelings I had as a young person are just as strong now, just maybe not as dramatic. And that's great. In fact, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. It's reminded me of the characters that I got to fall in love with because I experienced that journey alongside them. This brings me to shipping. There's people who ship, and there's people who don't get shipping. Shipping is how fans express their love for their favorite characters and the relationships that may or may not be developing in the story. When experienced through drawing, writing, or other creative works, shipping can be a transformative work and relies on an extensive knowledge of the canon in order to be loved by fans, even when it's an alternative universe fan fiction where the main characters are an Olympic figure skating pair. Getting those characters right relies on a creativity that is not expressed in other parts of the fandom. People who create these transformative works are essentially tapping into the same things that the creators do. They're getting to the heart of the creator's intentions, even when things don't progress in the same way in terms of the plot. In many ways, shippers can be far more creative and cleverer than people who refuse to ship. There are plenty of people out there who think that young women should grow up and beyond love stories, and that idea is destructive to both young women and young men. Love stories do a lot of good for the world, for kids, for teens, and for adults. So here are 3 simple rules I have for viewing love stories. 1, don't condemn or shame young girls for having romantic aspirations, even when it's silly and or unrealistic. 2, encourage a variety in what young girls and women consume, not just love stories, and not just certain types of love stories. 3, talk about the problematic things. Have an open dialogue about them, and try to allow those with different perspectives to take part. Love and love stories don't just make us feel good. Telling stories about love help us learn to be better people. Love stories can change the world. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. Let me know in the comments your experience with love stories and your perspective. This is really just my experience and my commentary. It's totally subjective. So if you have anything to add or would like to start a discussion about, I would love to hear it. Thank you so much again for watching, and cheers!